All right, we are live.
Feels like it's been a while. It's probably because it has.
Back in action.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
Not without good reason, though. It's not like we were just skipping.
a lot of traveling.
Yes, which wears you out.
Yeah,
I feel like it's just the logistics of it. It's like no matter, even if it's just a short trip, it's just, and we definitely didn't have the most smooth sailing trip. I feel like there was a lot of delays, a lot of different.
yeah. Well, where we fly out of, we can never get a direct flight, to like Vegas. So
Yeah.
it's just it's a pain in the ass. You end up traveling. By the time the day's over, it's like 10, 12 hours of traveling. And I was out in Vegas twice in like a 2 week period because I went the first time to have a meeting with that brand that we work with, and it was just a sit down meeting. Flew out there like 12 hours just for a meeting.
20
But
minutes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there was some prospective companies at that show, at the beauty show, which is a tough industry, but it's like, um, just staying current in these people's minds. It's the most important thing. And then we went out to ASD and networked and everything. And then you did some traveling there to for another brand too.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, we went to one of the networking events in Vegas, and it's funny. It's like I had posted something on the story about how I was traveling to meet a brand, and it was a good drive. It was like 4.5, 5 hours each way, and I got back to the event at night after I had had the meeting, and I had like 10 people come up to me like asking me about how the meeting went. I was like, man, I didn't know people took so much of an interest or cared so much, but yeah, it was tiring.
How did it go, by the way? Like, we didn't really debrief at all about it.
Really I just got back. I was shot. Yeah. I mean, it went well. I think that initially it was a little rocky. Um,
Oh yeah,
the,
that's right.
I told you the owner walked out on me like within the first 2 to 3 minutes, and then there was another sales manager who was more like calling the shots, and we stayed for about 2 hours, and we discussed a lot of stuff. And actually, they just emailed us back like 10 minutes ago, right before we got on this live. And I have a call set up for tomorrow just for like a optimize one of the listings already. And so one thing at a time. But sometimes that's how it goes. It's like you gotta, going above and beyond is like, and that was the main reaction that I was getting, I think, a lot of the times from when people were talking to me after I got back from that trip, which is like, they're like, wow, like you you travel all the way out there or whatever it is, and possibility. Um, or the second option is like, just when it's worth it, going above and beyond kind of just, it separates you from the crowd, because like these guys and just like a lot of other brands are working with huge sellers, and the difference between them staying with them or signing an exclusive with them and them going with someone who's not doing $100 million a year plus like us, is putting in that extra personal touch and that effort a lot of the times, from what I can tell, and I think from our past experience.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody could write a check. It takes a lot to build a relationship and really build trust over time. Somebody asked a question on IG about where's the beauty show. It's the Cosmoprof show. They do one in Miami and one in Las Vegas twice a year. So it's a tough industry, though, beauty. I mean, the only reason I went there is because we work with one company in that industry. And then there was like two or three other prospective partners that we've been having conversations with. But it was mainly just to meet, sit down with the owners of this company, build the relationship more,
Yeah.
be transparent about what we're doing. But I would say, as a whole, beauty is it's really a cutthroat industry because a lot of those brands sell directly on Amazon themselves. They tend to have a tight control over their Amazon presence in the beauty industry.
Yeah, most definitely. There's actually another show going on, which is same type of vibe. This week, I want to say in Vegas is there's a pet show. One of the brands that we work with actually reached out to me about, would we be in attendance, which I didn't even know about it. But apparently it was a pet industry related show going on, which is also a very cutthroat industry as well.
Yeah.
High gatekeeping.
Yeah. Like those two industries I would say those two probably the most. Would you say, like, are there any other industries that are like really, pushing for brick and
I
mortars?
mean, I was one of the DMs that I was answering today. I mean, not that it's brick and mortar related, but it was like supplement related. And so it was like, yeah, I'm niched in just the supplement category. Should I sell in it? This and that. And of course, I gave the answer of like, you got a lot of regulations and different things in that category that you don't have in like kitchen or health and household or something like that. So it's kind of something we stay away from. So not that that's really brick and mortar related, but um, we're category agnostic, obviously, but we are not completely, we care to an extent if it's going to be something that has like a violation related to it, or we stay away from it. It's just there's so many products out there, it's like, why bother?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just having that conversation today. It's like we're
Yeah.
stepping over dollars for quarters. It's like, what, why take the risk in a category just to make
Yeah.
a couple bucks where it's like, you know, you're making money on a lot of other products. And if you guys have any questions at all with anything we're going over, anything Amazon related, drop them in the chat. If you are watching on YouTube, just hit that like button. It really helps out the videos. As we're moving along here throughout the live, just drop in the questions, but we'll, do our traditional structure, which is where we go onto Smart Scout, show you exactly how we source products and brands. And then from there, we're going to identify a prospective brand that we might reach out to. And then we're going to talk about what it looks like to actually reach out to them. So before I jump into that, looks like there's another question here on IG. You there, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm answering. Thanks.
You cut out. Now, the next question was about makeup and things being safe in the beauty category. So it's not so much from that angle. It's more so the brands are just very tight control over their products and brands on Amazon. So they sell themselves on Amazon. They're not going to sell to you as a third-party seller. They want to sell to salons, brick and mortar stores and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a lot more regulations associated with those types of products, whether that's FDA stuff, whether that's brick and mortar industry specificity. Is that how you say that word?
Yeah.
Did I get it?
Well,
You screwed up too.
yeah. So
I usually just pop out and say specific.
Yeah. Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so we're in Smart Scout here. Actually, I'm gonna share the entire screen so I could toggle.
First brand on there was Apple. I don't know if that's a good.
Let's call.
Yeah, so let me get Wozniak on the phone real quick. Do you know that I saw this thing about where he wound up going to an Apple store and asking for the employee discount, and he's the co-founder, and they're like, "What's your employee number?" And he's like, 1. Guy had no idea who he was.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's worth how many billion he's still using the employee discount.
I'm sure, like, if he went into a lot of different Apple stores, they would have no idea who he is.
No clue. But that just goes to show you, like, we talk about in business in general, like frugality of stuff. And obviously that was probably more for the video than anything, but like, how much money is he worth? He's using the employee discount for the product. Like, I feel like he would get them for free though. No?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably a joke,
I think it was with I feel like it was with like Ashton Kutcher or something, or it was with some other celebrity that he did it with.
Yeah.
But yeah, no idea what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna just set a basic filter here on Smart Scout. So when you get into Smart Scout, there's a lot of tools that you can toggle through, but the main one we're going to be looking at is the brands tab here. And from here, we're just going to set like our basic filter, which just tells us some general criteria that we're looking for from a monthly revenue standpoint, a number of sellers standpoint, an ASP, average selling price standpoint. So generally we'll put this at about 9 for an average selling price. And then monthly revenue, we're looking at anywhere from like 20K to 250K. If you're just starting out, you might want to reduce your top parameter on the monthly revenue a little bit, just so you can target some of those smaller, more niche brands. And then we're going to want to include at least 2 sellers, 2 FBA sellers on the listing, because we don't want just the brand to be selling. And we want to see some sort of, third-party sellers on there. Anything to add to those parameters, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, again, it was just a DM conversation I was having the other day where the person had received some IP complaints for, a listing where there was only one seller on it. It wasn't the brand, but it was likely an exclusive. I don't know the details of it, but that's something, even if it's not the brand, just be careful and be able to read that third keeper graph. Any sharp drop-offs are, representing the fact that they're issuing IP complaints and knocking people off the listing. So something to keep an eye out for. And also I just remembered it was Steve-O that he went in with. Steve-O. I just had to say that, or I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't be wrong for this entire stream. I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah. All right. So from here.
And also, I mean, I was just going to say, like, this is monthly revenue, and it's always important to highlight that, is just because, this isn't yearly revenue, this is monthly revenue, and that's huge. I mean, as an exclusive seller or as a selective partner or as whatever, these are serious accounts. So this is not yearly, this monthly. So
when you said selective partners, somebody watching might not know what that means. What is that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's 3 types of accounts that we categorize, which I don't know if this is just an internal thing, but we have our basic anyone can sell accounts, which we like to call your low-hanging fruit accounts, where it's like, you just pick it right off the tree, right? Like they don't put up a fight. They don't say, hey, no Amazon sellers. And generally speaking, those accounts are not very profitable, maybe a little bit. But then you can also work those accounts sometimes towards being selective agreements, which is you're not the exclusive or the only seller of the brand, but you are a selective partner. So the brand says, all right, we've got seller A, B, and C, and you are our core group of sellers that are allowed to sell the product, and no one else is.
Right. So we're just going to scroll from here, right? And as we're scrolling, we're just keeping an eye out for different things. Like if Amazon's in stock 100% of the time, it's not something we're going to look at. We're going to take note of the average number of sellers. We're also obviously going to look at that monthly revenue. And as Brandon said, this is monthly, so we can take our filter and bring that down a little bit. Probably would recommend that as a beginner to target more smaller brands. And then we're also going to look at something called the brand score. So a main criteria that we look at in targeting potential brands to work with is some sort of discrepancy between how the brand is being represented on Amazon and the actual demand for the product. So if the product is selling really well, but their positioning on Amazon is poor, their listings are not good, that means it's an opportunity for us to provide strategic value to them in order for them to see us as a partner rather than, just another Amazon reseller. And that, when reaching out to brands, I would say that's like the number one thing, is that how do you get past rejection? How do you, stand out from the thousands of other resellers reaching out to them? It comes down to positioning and, helping them understand that you're actually going to provide value to them, helping them understand that their existing resellers aren't doing anything to provide that value, and how you can actually come in and strategically position their brand and help them grow. So that's really our main, target for brands. So just tying that back in with brand score, brand score, it shows, it's like a holistic assessment of the brand and the listings on Amazon. So if there's a poor listing or if it's got bad reviews, the brand score might be lower. Whereas if the listing's super optimized, selling really well, price consistency, the brand score might be higher. And I'll just keep scrolling,
Yeah.
stop if you see anything here.
Sure. As we've been doing this more too, I mean, there are some really, really killer accounts in this range, but I also like those accounts, especially for, the newer seller, because we were talking about this past week just amongst each other, is that sometimes the larger, the account is, or the caliber of the account, the more, which, makes sense, the more resistance they're going to put up, and the more that you have to be able to have a higher skill set in order to close. And for me, and I think it's pretty much been the same from your experience as well when we're contacting brands. It's like maybe that 20,000 a year profit, 30,000 a year profit. It's like, I am a firm believer that anyone can close those accounts, if you've had enough cold calls under your belt, obviously, and you understand Amazon. But then you get into these like 50, 60, 70, and then it's like there's a lot more resistance. And then those $100,000 plus profit a year accounts, there is a lot of resistance a lot of the times where you have to do things that you kind of don't know how to do as a new seller. And so, especially tying that back into Smart Scout, sorting it by those brands, especially if you're a new seller, I think it's important to punch at your pay grade, basically. Um, so, filtering it accordingly is a good tactic, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we could even, why don't we just jump back here and reduce this and see what we can find, I'll put it at 100,000.
Which is
But
100,000 times 12. That's over $1 million in revenue a year.
yeah, and really the thing is, it's like, what was the term you just used? Punch something, what'd you say?
I'm pretty sure I combined two different sayings that are each have their
It
own meaning, and I
it
combined them
sounded
both
good, so
together.
what was
But
it?
did it sound good? As long as it sounded like I know what I'm talking about, that's what matters. But it's yeah, I said like punching at your pay grade, basically.
Yeah, and
Punching in
like,
your weight class. Maybe that's
yeah, and like going off that, it's like I think back to that account that was like super high caliber, multi six figure account that, like, 3 years
yeah,
ago, I had the account, we were resellers of the product and they were transitioning into an exclusive, but we didn't have the experience to close the account. And looking back on it, if that happened now, it would have been a wrap. You know what I mean? So it's at your level in terms of skill. It's also at your level in terms of money.
capital. Yeah.
If you're broke, like, you're not going to be closing, a $250,000 revenue monthly account.
Yeah.
It's just
And
not.
that's kind of as disheartening as it is, I think, because everyone wants to close these crazy accounts and, be able to spend the rest of their life on the beach drinking, Corona. I think that in reality, like, being able to only close certain accounts which are at your, like I said, your weight class is important, because it you're not going to close $1 million profit a year account in your first year, because you don't have the money, you don't have the skill set, and therefore you have to work up to that point. And so it's all a very organic process. Like, that's one of those things in wholesale that I feel like you really can't buy into, because it's not only money, but it's skill set too. And it's references. I mean, you really
Yeah.
think that a brand that's making you $1 million in profit a year is going to just, like, all right, they're not going to go over with the trust me, bro mentality,
Yeah, they're not just going to hand it over, and you don't need to do any of that in your first year. Like,
No,
you
you
just,
don't.
if you need to, if you could get like 10 accounts that are netting you 10K profit per year, I mean, that's freaking great.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't need to be closing these crazy high caliber accounts, especially If it's your first year, second year, even third year, the smaller accounts add up over time. Like our largest accounts, make up, I don't know, maybe 25, 30% of our revenue. And the other
Right.
70% of the revenue is all of those, smaller mid-size accounts that have just compounded over the years.
Sure. Just question on YouTube before we jump into the Smart Scout stuff. It says, how much to start wholesale? Can I use $3,000? What do you think on that?
I think you can use 3,000. Yeah, I think that's a good amount. But I think that you want to, you might be a little bit limited in your investment portfolio and products. Generally, we'll say at least like 3,000 would be the minimum. In terms of scaling a little bit quicker, and then you're going to probably want to get more towards that 5,000 mark to scale it faster. But that being said, I think you could definitely start with $3,000. Open a few accounts, get a few products in your inventory.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is that you might not have those MOQs. You might be able to stay MOQ under 3,000, but at the same time, by the time that $3,000 cycles in, you get paid out from Amazon and you get paid back. Like that's a long period of time where you can't really invest in other products. So, I mean, maybe continuing to do product research during that time, but I personally like that $5,000 to $10,000 range, but I don't think anything is stopping you at three. Yeah. Also, just again, before we jump into the Smart Scout, just a question on Instagram. A brand has a presence, not on Amazon, only in Shopify. So this is it's a tough question, but I will tell you in a real time example, there's a brand that we're working with right now that has recently acquired a different brand, and that brand does about $600,000 to $700,000 a year on Shopify, but is not on Amazon. And we are currently launching that brand on Amazon. And so the reason we're doing that is because, one, we already work with the brand, so we already have a relationship with them. But two is because it has sales traction on another platform. So it's important to remember why you're in business, which is to, yes, develop relationships and all that, but it's also to make money. And so if that brand doesn't have any traction on any other platform, there's no sales data to go by, then I wouldn't recommend launching them or pitching them on anything on Amazon, unless you are willing to completely, put a ton of money into ads and dump a ton of money into things with no proven sales history. But yeah, I mean, it's a case by case scenario, but I would get the numbers.
Right. Exactly. So as we're looking here, right, I actually like to look at what the name of the brand is, because it's this weird intuition thing where I see like kind of an obscure name, and it signals, all right, this is a niche, right? This is a niche that I could potentially capitalize in. And like the first thing I'm looking at is this tree gator. And then I'm also looking at pickleball because that's like a subcategory of, that's a niche category. It's blowing up pickleball, but it's still like relative to the total market, it's a niche category. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up these two brands and see what.
I feel like I've heard of these guys.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this product before in real life. Let's see what they got.
So one of the things that we're doing and looking at this kind of stuff is we're doing a analysis of everything that's on the page in 30 seconds. And we're making a decision based on that if we want to contact the brand or not. And so we can go into all those factors and just, one by one break them down. But, just for the purpose of this video, it's probably best that we find a product that we're looking at and saying, hey, we're going to contact these guys just to keep it, not crazy long. And then we'll go through everything one by one at that point, I think.
Yeah. Is this one that you would say, would potentially be of interest?
For me, it's like a middle of the road thing. I mean, what is that rank? I can't really see that.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. It's a big category too. I mean, Yes. I mean, I definitely think it would be absolutely, it would be a reach out for sure. I mean, how many sellers are we looking at?
I think this is a definite reach out
Yeah.
and then see where it goes. I mean, because it's checking a number of boxes for me. They have pretty good images, right? These images are nice, crystal clear
Yeah.
images, but they are lacking in some things, right? Like 2-pack is the first thing in the title.
And there's no infographic either. I mean, there's no
no
like
infographic.
description of anything. It's just, a picture of some guy's house.
Yeah, probably the guy took a picture outside his house, but there's no bullet points. There are multiple resellers, right? So that tells you they're selling to resellers. There's competitors, or really what these are knockoff products. So that's a lot of, like, I'll take that angle a lot. Like, there's knockoffs capitalizing on their brand because they're strategically placing ads on their listings. They also seem to have map violations here.
Yeah.
That might signal, hey, something's, maybe the current resellers aren't trustworthy, right? These are all just general conclusions that I'm potentially drawing based on experience, right? Doesn't mean it's true, but we're creating concepts and ideas around things that we're seeing on the listing. And then, the last thing I saw was that they didn't have any A+ brand content, which is, enhanced content that should be down in the product description to drive sales, to, showcase the products, to articulate the story of the brand, all those different things through media and content. They don't have it. They just have a couple of sentences here.
And you also have to, remember that you are exactly what you said is you're arming yourself with information. You're arming yourself with information prior. So this process, even once we've developed a list of leads that we're going to reach out to, once we're on the phone, this screen is up in the background. It's a quick one over on these initial calls. Reaffirm all the things to yourself. So that way, any objection that you face on the phone, you have an answer to, because again, you're arming yourself with information, which for us is all of this information on the listing or lack thereof.
Right. Right. So, I mean, did you want to work off this one or see if we could find another one?
I do like this. I mean, it also has a nice average selling price. I mean, you're in that $45 plus range. I don't know what the map is supposed to be. Maybe it's 50, 45, 49, something like that. Looks like it's 49 something, 48.
Yeah, it's
either
like
way. I mean, that's a real nice average selling price. So, I mean, we take a quick look and see if there's anything that we'd like better. But then, if not, we can come back to this one because not a bad listing. Seasonal too, obviously.
Yeah, I love my seasonal products.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. Like, when you look at a listing, like, I'm already saying to myself, and just looking at this Keepa, the sales are starting to slow down. So they're coming out of their peak season. So now might be a good time to reach out to them. And these are all conclusions that we're drawing from things we're seeing on the listings, right? And the other thing is, just for like newer Amazon sellers, if you're not totally familiar with how to read variations, just like real quick on variations, like there's 2 variations here, 1-bag and 2-bag. You're going to go down to the Keepa chart, go to the variations tab. And from here, you're going to look at the volume of ratings that are happening. So, and you're going to click this to sort it from highest to lowest. And what that's going to tell you is that the 1-bag gets 72% of the ratings, which generally means it gets about 72% of the volume happening on the listing. So the 2-bag definitely does sell. But if you were to potentially get an account with these guys, you would want to strategically allocate to the appropriate ASINs. So many times I see new sellers, they get all excited about this variation when it's actually like a 1-pack and a 3-pack and a 5-pack, and Amazon's selling the crap out of the 1-pack, but they're not selling the 3-pack and the 5-pack. And then they get all amped up about, selling the 5-pack. They send in a bunch of inventory, and they end up getting stuck with it because they don't understand the relationship with variations.
Exactly. And that's great advice. It can save you from losing a lot of money. I just want to, as you look for another product here, I'm just going to answer a couple different questions that we have coming in on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff, YouTube. And, first one is just what category you suggest for a beginner that would be easy going. I would say anything, but like we mentioned earlier in the stream, maybe stay away from beauty just because it's very competitive. Maybe stay away from anything relating to medications, over the counters, any sort of thing that there might be a regulation on the product. I would stay away from anything pet related because, again, it's a lot of requires, brick and mortars, different things like that. Other than that, it's pretty much free game. I mean, for us, we find that the category doesn't matter so much. We tend to like grocery because no returns. We like automotive because lower fees, but we sell in really everything. And so I don't think one category or another is easier for the beginner. I think that it just, looking at the total caliber of the brand, which kind of piggybacks into that next question that's on here, which is what's the monthly revenue for a brand that's willing to work with a beginner? I mean, I think that a lot of brands will work with a beginner. I think that as you get into it, you will know very fast if you are, like I said, punching above your weight class. So I think just reaching out in volume and not trying to hyperanalyze that before you reach out. I think that's how I would approach it. And the next question here is, how do I find my first wholesale product to sell on Amazon? Well, I think that either starting with a software like this or starting with, a method like storefront stalking, which is the meat and potatoes of our business basically for a long time, as far as sourcing other sellers' stores, finding the products that are selling well based on DS Quick View, which is a software Chrome extension, based on Keepa, based on things like that, and then putting those into a spreadsheet and contacting them. And in all honesty, finding your first wholesale product just has to do with contacting a ton of brands and suppliers, because wholesale, like everything else, when it comes to profits and products and things like that, even in outreach, is a volume game. So you have to reach out to a ton of suppliers, and there's a lot of rejection at the beginning. And in a short that Brad had actually recorded, a couple of weeks back, it really comes down to calling is not a loss. It's not a rejection, as long as you learn from it and you continue to move forward and take something from the last call and bring it to the next call and just develop the skill set over time. So first wholesale product, just reach out to a ton of suppliers. We did 100, 150 a week at the beginning. So you really have to put the work in. Next question here off of Twitter says, if a product has a potential IP complaint, but you have the paperwork to back the brand, of the brand, is that fine? I think that if you're selling through distributors, you are always running the risk of running into a problem like that, because the distributor might be authorized, but you might not be authorized by the brand to sell the product. So, you run that risk, and a lot of people that sell through distributors have that issue. And the one thing I will say on that is, if you are working with a distributor, they should have absolutely zero, and Brad and I said this on one of our consult calls the other day, is that they should have zero hesitation in providing you with direct information from the brand that they are an authorized distributor of that brand. And if they do, get the hell out of there, because if they put up any sort of a fight with that, they're probably not authorized or a legitimate distributor to begin with. And that goes, following up that next thing. If you sell beauty directly from the brand, that's generally fine. Anything directly from the brand is better than from distributors. And then other question here on Instagram says, how many brands and suppliers should I be contacting a week? Like I mentioned, we started with like 100, sometimes 150. As you do it more, it becomes tougher because you get more follow-ups and you get bombarded with all the follow-ups rather than initial calls. But I think that wholesale, I know that wholesale is a direct result of your inputs versus your outputs are directly related to how much work you put in. So if you contact 100 suppliers a week, your close rate is a percentage of that, and then your profitable price list and exclusives are going to be a percentage of that. So the more outreach you do, the better. But I definitely say if you do 100 suppliers a week for 6 months, there's almost no way that you will not get results in this business model. And that looks like that's all the questions for right now. So if you want to, hopefully that gave you enough time to find some more products.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, no, I'm just toggling here. And this is what the process is all about in terms of sourcing. It's tedious. You're sifting through catalogs and you're looking at Amazon and you're trying to get a gauge on the brands to reach out to, right? So in the very early stages, we would actually source the suppliers at night and on the weekends, and then contact them during the day, during business hours. And if you have a full-time job while you're doing this, and it depends, if you live on the East Coast, you can actually contact brands Pacific time after your workday. You can contact at lunch. So if you have a full-time job, it's definitely going to be more of a grind in the beginning than somebody who is just jumping right into it, because you're going to have the time. And wholesale in the beginning, it's all about time. It's very time intensive in the beginning. But once the accounts are built in, once you have products, replenishable inventory that you're ordering on a monthly basis, you would be amazed at how quicker it actually scales from when you were first starting. And there is a turning point, and generally a lot of people will see that turning point after 6 months, and after a year is when they'll really start to see it compound itself.
Yeah, exactly. There's always, again, at the event we were just at, the networking event, I was talking to someone and he had asked about that. And I was explaining how as it grows, like we always use that term snowball effect, but one of the ways that I phrased it to him was that there is always an iron in the fire as you're going. So the more you do this, every time you turn around, there's another hot lead that you can then capitalize on. And that's just done throughout, contacting so many brands.
Right. There's always opportunity. Don't get married to a brand just because it looks good. There's always opportunity. So I've been sifting, and I think there's definitely some viable products we can find. I mean, this one doesn't look bad. I still, to be honest, I still kind of like this one that we looked at earlier. We can keep sourcing through, but I think for the purposes of time and just really getting into the nuts and bolts of what we're saying on the phone, how we're positioning the conversation, I mean, I'm good with just running with something like this, right? If we want to sort of transition it into outreach now. But again, somebody who's watching this, right, and saying, well, we found one lead, but we spent maybe 15 minutes, if that, sourcing right now. Like, you have to spend hours and hours and hours sourcing, and then continue to go down that rabbit hole. So what Brandon had mentioned earlier on, which was storefront stalking, right? So we would take a look at this listing, and we know that multiple resellers sell the product. So we would not just reach out to this brand and say we don't get the account. We wouldn't just close out the listing, right? We would go and look at the other sellers that are selling the product, and then open up their stores, right, in new tabs, and then source products from their stores. So right here, like if you scroll down this, and a lot of these guys, quite frankly, look like third-party sellers based on their names. But if you scroll through, or rather, I meant to say, they look like non-industry specific, right? Because, we'll probably stay away from guys who are like specific in the industry, but guys who are selling all kinds of products like us, that's our competition. That's where we can close the accounts. So we'll look at those stores, and then we'll, just populate a sheet, have our VA source through the stores, and then add the leads into a list. And from there, we're going to look at those stores and then open up new products and continue to find stores, so much so that you continue to go down this rabbit hole that just never ends.
And those processes are done separately. Like all of the sourcing of the brands and the products are done separately from outreach. Like you don't want to do one for one, look up a brand, call, just because, especially with outreach, you kind of get in the rhythm of things. And it's just a lot more time efficient. So get your 50 leads first and then start making calls.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So we got a listing up here. We pick up the phone, we go to their website, we find their phone number, we call them. And what do we say? What's the first thing that you say to get a wholesale account and
I say, hi, I'm an Amazon seller.
I want to sell your products on Amazon.
So that is not what you say. That is, sometimes we joke around about it because there is a lot of not that it's that direct. I don't know, maybe it is, but a lot of times there's no value provided to these brands, especially on these initial calls. So, I mean, the first thing is to say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm calling from XYZ company, and we're looking to stock and ship your products from our XYZ warehouse. Can you tell me a little bit more about how your company deals with e-com sellers? All in the same breath. And, doing that, you're basically deflecting a little bit onto the brand to then put them in the position to explain to them what their, position is in the e-commerce world. And the more information on the first call that you can gather from them, the better. As far as the more questions you can ask, the more you can open the door to expose what their pain points are, and then you can go from there. So introduce yourself, who you are, what your company is, what you do, and then ask them questions.
And I would also add too is that you might not even need to start digging into all of their everything about e-commerce or Amazon if they're just going to give you the account right away.
Yes. Very
so
good.
if you people might jump to the pitch before there's a need for any pitch, right? I've been there before where, I find myself pitching a brand and it's like, what am I doing? They're going to give it to me anyway, so save your time, save your energy, get the account, because your number one priority is to get that product in your inventory and start working with them. And then once you've initiated a transaction, start a working relationship from there, now you are a customer of theirs. You're paying them, so they're going to likely be more receptive to your ideas than just a random guy calling them on the phone. Right.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective is more from if you're faced with rejection type of deal. I mean, like you said, you want to get the price list. That's the initial goal. So don't go into your entire pitch unless you're faced with rejection. If you take the path of least resistance, as you say.
Yeah, and like Brandon said, we have the listing up as we have them on the phone, and likely I can guarantee you if I called this brand, they would probably tell us, we're not doing Amazon, and we would gauge the tonality in which they said, we're not doing Amazon. Is it absolutely not, no, goodbye, hang up the phone? Is it, yes, here's an account? Or is it somewhere in the middle where they're like, we're not really working with Amazon sellers. We have some sellers, we're not opening accounts up right now. We'd be happy to keep your information on file for a future date. Something like that. I mean, I'm going to pursue, right? Because I see value to add to this brand. And because I see value to add, that means we can offer something that other people aren't. And that's what closes the account. And another thing is that somebody asked us not too long ago. What was that? You there?
I said, well said. That was.
I thought you were cutting out there. Yeah. I'm here. But
nope.
Did I jump out of the screen share by mistake?
Yeah.
Jump back to this. So another thing somebody was asking us the other day was about what do I pitch the brand and what kind of value do I add? Well, you don't decide the value as the person reaching out. You base your value and your solutions around what their issues and challenges are. And that's standard for any sales, right? You don't want to be, offering them apples when they're asking for oranges, right? Like, you need to base your solutions around what they need. And we know that as, experts in selling on Amazon and dealing with these problems and helping brands overcome these challenges, we know that we can basically provide a strategy and a solution for every single problem they have. And it's just a matter of offering them the right one.
I think we have more analogies and sayings. I'm going to make a bold claim and say that we have more analogies than any other Amazon seller, because we're pulling some shit out of the.
Take a poll on that.
Yeah. We have like 10 of them just in this stream right here.
Yeah.
But it makes sense though. I mean, you're illustrating a perfect point in like a way that people understand, which is, if they don't need that, then don't give it to them. And in the terms of brand direct and in wholesale in general, that apples to oranges thing, if they're money driven, well, don't try and improve the listing images because they don't care, and vice versa. So it makes perfect sense. We just have a lot of are they analogies? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Those are like the SATs, metaphors, right? Where it's like metaphors. Yeah, is that where it's like, this is to this as this is to this, right? Remember that SATs? Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at as you're talking about metaphors is, I'm looking at the knockoffs that are running ads on their listings here. It's like, this is just pollution. You know what I mean? Like, you can come at them from this angle. And what's funny is, like, brands don't, like, we'll reach out to brands, like, they just won't reply, right? I'll just keep sending emails. Our systems will send out automatic emails or whatever, right? We'll make calls, we'll leave voicemails. They just won't reply. But you'll start to get a little bit more serious in trying to get their attention, right? And it almost gets to the point where it's like, there are knockoffs like stealing your brand on Amazon, and then all of a sudden you get a reply, right? So it's just, if you can get somebody on the phone, and you want to get an owner or an executive decision maker on the phone, but if you can get somebody on the phone and you have an understanding of how to pitch these different value adds to the brand, you're going to close the account, right? Because I see it here. I see it, there's other resellers, they're not doing these things, and you're going to close the account, right? I mean, that's generally how we'll position this outreach conversation. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, if you're doing this type of stuff, you should feel extremely confident, just in the sense of, there is not a lot of it out there. And you can see that by most of the listings that we look at, which that was the first listing that we clicked on in Smart Scout. And there's nothing, and there's 8 sellers on that listing, and no one's doing anything for the brand. And that is more common than you would think. So coming from this approach, you're already ahead of the game.
Right. And if you're a new Amazon seller, just as we're closing out here shortly, if you're a new Amazon seller, you don't need to close an exclusive agreement. You don't need to, close a crazy account. If you can, great, do it. But you will gain the experience as you go. And if you are met with tons and tons of rejection, which you will, fight through it, try to provide these brands with value adds. But don't be afraid, if you're at a dead end, to ask about distributors. Because if you can get an authorized distributor from the brand, then you could potentially buy through that distributor, build up some volume with them, and then go back to the brand and say, hey, look what I did with the distributor. Are we open to a direct relationship here? And if you've gotten an authorized list from the brand, you have nothing to worry about in terms of invoicing and supply chain, because that distributor is authorized by the brand. So they're going to check out with Amazon if they ever ask you for invoices or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a question here about ASP? What's the average unit price you're selling? Recently, it's been high.
I mean, we're all over the place. I mean, we like high ASPs because it scales faster, but at the same time, like, we're still selling the $9 item.
Yeah, we're all over the place. I mean, we've been focused more on accounts on higher ASPs, just because, again, it's like the same amount of inputs for a lot more profit, because 15% of 200 is a lot more than 15% of 2. So
Yeah.
hopefully not selling a product for $2. I don't know. Back in the day, you could actually sell stuff on Amazon for like 99 cents and make money off of it. I was watching Reezy talk. No, it was because they. I was watching Reezy talk about it. It was because they charged the shipping or something, and so he was like, "Yeah, I was selling books for $1 and making money on the shipping or something." This was like way before our time, but I don't know.
Yeah, he must have been charging an arm and a leg for shipping.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It was something how it was like a flat rate or I don't know what it was, but it says what to do if a supplier doesn't have a catalog and only items are on their website. How would you approach that?
If they don't have a catalog, just look at the items on their website. If ask them for a wholesale price list. If they don't have a wholesale price list, ask them for quote on specific items that you're interested in, and give them the estimated volumes, for a test order and long-term volume, right? If it's distributors, if you're working with distributors, it's going to be a volume game, guys. I mean, it's all about volume with distributors. So it's like, I'll generally, if it's an initial conversation with a distributor, I'll give them like an estimated volume of like hundreds of units, just so I know what my potential is on price. But that doesn't mean I'm going to jump right into hundreds of units on the opening order.
Yeah.
I just want to know if there's potential for long-term profitability and margin growth versus just, give me a quote on 5 units like it's going to be at retail. That doesn't do me any good.
Yeah, and one thing that I like to do, exactly, one thing that I like to do too is to give them 3 different tiers. So I say, if we purchase 10 units, if we purchase 100 units, if we purchase 1,000 units or whatever it is, what are the prices on each? And that way you can kind of know where their flexibility is. But the follow-up question to that was, then I manually search each item on Amazon for the good listings. So yeah, basically, I mean, you're going to want to search by brand, by UPC, if that's available, and just by generic product name to find the listings. Or if you have a scraper, you can use that. If you have like Scan Unlimited or something like that, where you can actually search by UPC and, but yeah, manual search.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if we don't have any, if anybody's got any last minute questions, drop them in now. We're going to be closing out here in a few moments. If you guys do have questions that, you think of later on, ask them on Instagram. We're constantly posting stories about, ask Amazon related questions. Drop them on the YouTube, because this is going to get posted to YouTube, this video live. And we always respond to the comments on YouTube directly, so, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, as always, just hit that like button. Really helps out the videos, helps the channel grow, helps us continue to make more valuable content for you guys. And if you want to continue to stay current on what we're doing, follow us, Operation AMZ, on all platforms. We're live here now every week, hopefully, barring any travel or circumstances. But we're going to be going live again every Wednesday, 7:00 Eastern. Last minute words.
No, I think that's it. I think you got it. Hopefully there's no issues and we're consistent.
All right.
This is good. I appreciate all the engagement and everything you guys have been giving us lately. And we love answering the questions and just connecting with everybody. So yeah, we're always happy to connect. And we also have a Smart Scout affiliate code if you wanted to use Smart Scout. So if you want that,
you don't have Smart Scout, just reach out to us. You get a discount. We'll get a little something from it.
Yeah, 25% off for 3 months.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.